On today's episode of Locked On NHL, breakout candidates for every team in the West.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On NHL. We are your team every day, and we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs are in the rearview mirror, sports just aren't sporting the way we would like them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's episode of the Locked On NHL podcast, we take a look at breakout candidates for every team in the West. Some youngsters that are in position to make a huge splash this season. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, joined as always on the Western Conference Tuesday edition of Locked On NHL by JD Young of Locked On Sharks. Make sure as your second listen today, check out both shows because JD, to lead things off, William Eklund's back on Locked On Sharks.
Third time, annual tradition now, 3 years in a row, annual tradition every summer. So yes, go check it out, William Eklund. You can tell though the media trading is really kicking in with him now. So it's but it was still a very good episode. Go check out myself and Slippery Pete.
Excellent. Well, let's get to our list. So we're doing breakout candidates, and the qualifiers here are players who either haven't really hit yet or young players building off of their foundation. We're not gonna, I've got a list from the hockey writers here that I'm using as kind of a reference point. Some of these names, it's like these are established players. Like you can't really break out.
Bald. One guy's bald.
Yeah, you can't really break out as an established player, and so
yes,
we're using it just as a reference point. But let's start with the old Anaheim Ducks alphabetical order, and this article by the hockey writers, Michael Ostrower, has Mason McTavish as the breakout candidate for the Anaheim Ducks. But JD, we have a better name in mind for Anaheim this upcoming season, and it's one that's a little younger even than Mason McTavish, one of the key pieces for this Anaheim Ducks team going forward. That is, of course, Leo Carlsson.
Yeah, Leo Carlsson last year. I watching him a lot, of course, second overall pick. Watching these Sharks Ducks rebuild that is slowly inching along. And Carlsson, you saw a lot of flash from him. Big kid, 6'4". You can tell going to be a great two-way center. Very kind of almost draft-like. Where I think he's still kind of getting used to his size and what he can do. But I think there was a lot to like if you're a Ducks fan of what you saw from him. And I know he's a bit of a surprise when the Ducks picked him second overall last year, especially with Adam Fantilli on the board. But I think Carlsson, fully healthy, is going to have that kind of breakout season where we're talking about him as kind of that next 1C for the Anaheim Ducks. And then if you have Mason McTavish as your 2C, whatever they figure out to do with Trevor Zegras, like you can see why Leo Carlsson is going to kind of be the pillar of the next great Ducks team. So yeah, I think this is the year where you start to see him put it together and, be an every night 200-foot player.
He won't have the pitch count either. That was one of the weird things this past season, was that the Anaheim Ducks put him on a bit of a snap count. And you would think that those restrictions will be lifted, which means that he goes from 55 games to much closer to 82.
And the injury last year, knocked him out for a good chunk. Yeah. So, I think a full season and also just a full season to work out and get ready for NHL training camp instead of actually, the draft and the combine, and then jumping into it. I think we kind of take that for granted that like, oh, actually having 2 extra months to work out when you're not trying to train for the combine and the draft. So yeah.
That'll certainly help. But yeah, it feels like he's the pretty clear choice for breakout player for the Ducks. Let's move on to the Calgary Flames. Now, this one is interesting because in this article, they list Kevin Ball as the breakout candidate, the defenseman who was acquired by the Calgary Flames in the Jacob Markstrom trade. Big-bodied defenseman at 24 years old. But we have kind of a different train of thought for this because Jacob Markstrom has to be replaced somehow. And so what better to go than the route of the potential goalie of the future that could step in and replace him, a la Dustin Wolf.
Yeah, I think Wolf has to be the hopeful. Coronado's another guy too, had a really nice season in the AHL, was at the AHL All-Star game. Got to talk to him, really nice kid. But Dustin Wolf, I think though is going, I know he's had a little bit of a tough time in his limited NHL experience, but he's not going to have to worry about, I think, getting that hook, right? I know, you have Dan Bladard, you've got Cooley, who's kind of a career AHL type of guy as their third goalie, but the Flames need Dustin Wolf to succeed, and I think Dustin Wolf is going to get every chance to succeed this year, and I think we're going to be talking about him as the next great young goalie in the NHL.
17 games this past year, a 3.16 goals against average and an 893 save percentage. No Markstrom, as you alluded to take all the starts. And so there's going to be, and with Calgary in the spot that they're in, a very clear rebuild, you want to give Wolf the opportunity to see what he's got. And so he's going to get a healthy amount of starts this year. And so if he does something with it, he is a very easy, I think, breakout candidate for this Calgary Flames team. Moving on to the Chicago Blackhawks, and the article, again, from the hockey writers listing breakout candidates for every team. They go with Lukas Reichel as their potential breakout candidate for this Chicago team. Obviously, Connor Bedard's not going to break out. He already did. But Reichel, 5 goals and 11 assists in 65 games. Is that the right call?
I can see Reichel. You could also look at one of the defensemen, Alex Vlasic, who had a great year, and I know he got paid this offseason. And then Kevin Kurchinski. I'm curious to see what they do with Kurchinski. He played last year in the NHL and struggled, which you would expect with a 19-year-old kid. You wonder now with him not having to worry about the CHL NHL agreement, if they send him into the AHL for a little bit, or if they let him kind of continue to get his feet under him in the NHL. But Kurchinski, I could see as a guy who maybe like things start to click for him this year if he plays a lot more. I love Kurchinski. He's one of my favorite defensemen in that draft class. But yeah, I would probably go with one of the defensemen. You could also, Reichel would make a lot of sense there too. But yeah,
I like Vlasic though. He got paid, like you said. He got paid. Played 76 games last year, and this is an opportunity here for him to show that he is worth the money. So I think Vlasic's probably the better choice there. So we'll go with him. Moving on to Colorado. Listed here is Justus Anunen as the potential breakout candidate for Colorado, because let's be honest, you look at the roster and it's McKinnon, it's Rantanen, it's Middlestat, it's Lehkonen. There are not a ton of young names on this list that will factor in a ton to the overall production for the team. But there is one spot that could be really intriguing, is Justus Anunen in goal. Alexander Georgiev has had some good moments. He's had some very not good moments. He got just torched by the Winnipeg Jets in game 1 of that postseason series this past year. And so, he's in the final year of his deal. And so this is a big season for Anunen to show if he can be that guy going forward to where you don't necessarily have to keep Georgiev around. But if it's me, I think he's probably the pick because, like I said, there just aren't a ton of young players on this Avs team that are going to be in positions to break out.
I would say one. Well, also to get some news there, Oliver Shillington, who the Avs did sign, did have a breakout season a couple years ago, but had really kind of, it was struggled with some mental health issues, all that stuff. Played well, I thought, in his time when he came back. I love this signing by Colorado, getting a guy who I think is going to have a potential breakout season and reestablish himself as a great defenseman once again. I know it's cheating, but I just want to also throw Shellington in there. So yes,
sure. Let's get to one more before we take a break, and it's the Dallas Stars. Listed here, Thomas Harley, but we are both in agreement that there is another name that makes far more sense because he kind of did already, but he has the chance now with a full season in front of him to really put together an intriguing season. That's Logan Stankoven. Like this is the only name that makes sense for Dallas. And he had 6 goals, 8 assists in 24 games. And, if not for Dallas sending him down after really jumping on the scene, like he could have had a season similar to what Wyatt Johnston has done. But now that he's going to, like you expect him to be in the mix the entire season for Dallas this year, which means that he's going to get the opportunity to show his stuff for the whole year. And if he had 6 goals in 24 games, you do the math. Like that's all of a sudden, close to 20, 25 goals for a team that has no shortage of goal scorers. So he's the hands down, I think, breakout candidate here. He looks the part and looks like he is poised to just be another great selection by the Dallas Stars to add to the mix.
The vitriol when you say that. When you say that.
They just never stop adding good players to their prospect pool. Like it would be something I would give them respect for if it didn't just annoy me. But that's neither here nor there. We've got plenty of other names to get to, including the Stanley Cup runner-ups, the Minnesota Wilds. We've got the San Jose Sharks as well. We got a lot of teams to get to as we continue to identify one breakout candidate for every team in the Western Conference. More of that on the way here on today's episode of Locked On NHL. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by FanDuel. Folks, you know me. I love sports. I love sports so much, I never want them to stop. But we are in the dog days of August. And with the Olympics and Major League Baseball, that fills up most of the sports calendar. No NFL, no NHL, no NBA. FanDuel, however, is here to help keep the sports going no matter the time of year. All you have to do is open the app and dream up any bets anytime you are in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there is something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Welcome back to today's episode of the Locked On NHL podcast. Once again, we are your team every day, and we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. For your second listen today, again, we'll give a plug to Locked On Sharks. William Eklund on the show. Repeat Locked On Sharks guest. So make sure to check that out and give them the like and the subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts audio-wise as well, you can tune into elite interview work by JD. So getting back to our discussion on breakout candidates for every team in the West. JD, let's go to the Edmonton Oilers. And listed here is Dylan Holloway as the potential breakout candidate for the Edmonton Oilers. And honestly, like Connor McDavid, by default. Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, Evander Kane, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Those are all established guys. None of them are going to break out unless you want to count Jeff Skinner in a new place as a breakout candidate, but I don't.
No.
Dylan Holloway essentially gets this by just being the youngest guy on the team. And he has a chance certainly to add to what is a very potent Oilers offense.
Yeah, I think Evan Bouchard kind of what we saw from the playoffs kind of took away the like, oh yeah, he's your breakout candidate because he broke out during the playoffs. Yeah, this is very much a winner by default, uncontested running, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, he's going to be their potential breakout guy because they just don't have any other young players. That's to be expected when you have a team that is competing to try to win a championship. So congrats, Dylan Holloway.
Yeah,
winner by default.
You got it. It is your award to win. Next up, we go to the Los Angeles Kings. And this one is, I think, one of the more confusing ones for me because listed is Warren Foegele. Foegele, who played well with Edmonton, but in a very limited role. So I guess that's the logic behind being a breakout candidate. But Foegele had 20 goals with the Oilers this past season. And so, that I think puts him a little too high for a potential breakout candidate. But there was a name that you suggested that I think is a much more intriguing choice. That's Brant Clarke.
Yes, Brant Clark. I thought we were going to go with Big Save Dave. No. Who's also 1,000 years old. No, Brant Clark, 8th pick in the 2021 draft. Great offensive defenseman. And he's kind of played AHL, kind of, mix his time between the AHL and the NHL. I think he's going to be a full-time NHL guy here. I know they still, like on the defense, they still have Drew Doughty, who's going to kind of command all the like power play 1 opportunities and such, but don't be surprised if Brant Clark is running that second power play and is going to be the heir apparent to kind of taking over for Drew Doughty as he kind of continues to get up there in age. But I think Brant Clark's his ability to move the puck and create offensively for a team that has kind of struggled to score goals here and there and kind of gone through some slumps. I think Clark could be a shot in the arm to this team.
I'll handle the next one. The Minnesota Wild.
Just
and listed,
clear out.
Listed here is Marco Rossi. And look, I don't have a problem with this one, but I feel like a 21 goal, 40 point season is a breakout. Like Rossi played 19 games his first season in the NHL, had 1 point. He got sent back down to Iowa to work on, being a little tougher player to defend and just adding a little more bite to his game. He had that from the get-go last season. He had it from game 1 to game 82. He played every single game. He was 5th on the team in scoring with 21 goals. He played power play. He played, he was the second line and first line center for the Wilds pretty much all season. And so I feel like that constitutes a true breakout. Like I feel like that constitutes a breakout season. The Wilds are in need of somebody to take over the second line wing spot opposite Matt Zuccarello with Marco Rossi on the second line. I am going to predict that Liam Ogren is the guy that does that. Ogren's got a little size to his game. He plays kind of a power forward-y type role, which is perfect because you've got Matt Zuccarello, who's an adept passer. Marco Rossi's a net front guy. Ogren can be kind of that intermediate between the two, and he shoots the puck. That's the basic thing that it comes down to. And so I'm putting all my money on Liam Ogren being the breakout candidate for the Minnesota Wild this year. And hot take, 20 goals in his true rookie season this year. I think he'll make a little run at the Calder Trophy. Yeah, I had to put that in there just to get the reaction because I knew it was coming. So I just put that in there just to get a ruse, and it clearly worked. So I'm happy it did. Let's move to the Nashville Predators. Cody Glass is the listed breakout candidate here. Is there a better option in Nashville? There are a lot of guys on this roster that are.
It's like Edmonton again. When you're a team as Nashville who was very aggressive this offseason and acquired a lot of veteran guys to try to go for broke, you're not going to have a lot of room for some of these young guys here. Or if they are, they're going to be kind of playing minimal roles. So, I'm going to say the 4 buyout slots / retain slots by Nashville. That's going to be their breakout role. This player this year is just all the buyouts that they have to deal with. No,
I mean, you could potentially go Luke Evangelista, but he had a breakout season. Whether or not he backs it up is another thing entirely. Like 16 goals in 80 games, that feels like a breakout. And so I think it's kind of got to be Cody Glass.
Yeah, one of those win by default because there's but Cody Glass has been around forever too. I feel like Cody Glass was like one of like the original Vegas guys. It feels like he's been around for that long. So Nashville.
It's not going to be Philip Forsberg. It's not going to be Steven Stamkos.
Yeah, have you heard of the Steven Stamkos kid? Yeah, he might be good. It's tough because they just don't really have a lot of guys. So I think just maybe the team itself is going to be a breakout team. The whole team is going to be a fun, exciting team that we're going to be tracking all season. So we'll just pick the whole team, Nashville.
Let's get to one more before we break, and it's your team, the San Jose Sharks. Ty Emberson is the choice in this article, but again, I think you've got a better name in mind.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of guys. The Sharks are loaded with young talent, and I know Celebrini or Will Smith would be kind of, and I'm going to give them their, I think they're going to be good players. But I think William Eklund is going to be the breakout guy, and he had a really good first full season, not a rookie season because he had played enough games. He had a really solid first full season on a very, very, very bad Sharks team where he put up 16 goals, 29 assists, 45 points in 80 games. And that was playing a lot with Luke Cunnin as his center throughout the season. I think my bold kind of prediction is I think William Eklund leads the team in points this season just because the much better center depth, right? Between Macklin Celebrini, Mikael Granlund, Will Smith, Logan Couture returns from the dead, Alex Wenberg. There's just going to be better players for him to play with and all the cool stuff that he does that kind of goes to waste because guys aren't able to kind of capitalize it. I think William Eklund's going to kind of have that big season. And I think it's going to be a 70-point season where he leads the team this year in points.
Wow. That is a bold prediction. All right. We've got a handful of teams left and some very obvious candidates and a couple that fly under the radar a little bit. So we'll finish breakout candidates for the Western Conference as we continue today's episode of the Locked On NHL podcast after this.
We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for candidates isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agreed Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. So, join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners to this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
One final segment of today's episode of Locked On NHL. And once you're done today, make sure you hang out so that you can experience the first of its kind 24/7 streaming channel. Locked On Sports Today is playing the hits every single day of the week, 24/7. Your favorite Locked On shows, your favorite teams, your favorite players, your favorite Locked On personalities. And best of all, we don't sit across from each other at a desk and yell at the top of our lungs. We deliver you the sports you're looking for, and you can find it at Locked On Sports Today, 24/7. Let's talk about the Seattle Kraken as we continue breakout candidates for each team in the Western Conference. And Shane Wright is the example given in this article by the Hockey Writers, which we've used as a reference point for today's show. And pun very much intended, that feels like the right choice for this Seattle Kraken team because look at this. You've got Matty Beniers, who
He's good.
He is a good player. He broke out in his first season.
Yep.
Slumped this past year, so he's more of a comeback candidate than a true breakout player. Shane Wright has not gotten the opportunity yet to really cut it at the NHL, and once he does, he's going to have the opportunity to really impress people and show that he was worthy of being taken as high as he was in the NHL draft. But as far as the centers go, you've got Chandler Stevenson, you've got Yanni Gourde, you've got Jared McCann. You also have Matty Beniers in the mix there. Shane Wright can force Seattle's hands if he puts together a strong preseason, makes his way onto the roster. If he does, then the rest will take care of itself. And so I think after a couple of seasons of just getting a little bit of action, I think this is the year that he finally does crack the lineup for the Kraken. Boy, I just nailed the puns in the Seattle portion of this.
Yeah, you put me to Shane with all your puns. They were just right. Shane Wright, who his development is going to be an interesting case study of like kind of bouncing around so much, kind of playing in the OHL, playing in the NHL, playing in the AHL, and just like all not really kind of getting a full season, especially that first year. Last year, got the exemption to go play in the AHL, and he was very, very good. But you saw the Kraken kind of being really slow and I think kind of being patient, especially with the 4th overall pick, who most people thought was going to be the 1st overall pick until 24 hours before that draft. So, I think Shane Wright, though, is going to be a every night NHL player. And I think you're going to see why he was considered at one point to be the best player in that draft. I think we're going to see a big Shane Wright season. And coincides with a big Matty Beniers, kind of take some pressure off him. If that's your 1-2 of Beniers right down the middle, that's not too bad.
Let's move on to the St. Louis Blues. And the listed player here is Joel Hofer, Jordan Binnington's backup. But, it's interesting because the name that we discussed in getting ready for the show was Jake Neighbors. And you look at the numbers he put up this past year, 27 goals, 11 assists. That ratio just is kind of weird to me.
Yes.
But, opportunity for him to show that he's capable of doing this consistently at the NHL level. And if you look at the rest of this Blues roster, like there are a lot of guys that have been around a long time on this roster. And so the only name that I guess I could even put in the same category. It's a guy that's been around forever, though. I can't.
Ryan Suter.
Kasperi. Oh boy, Kasperi Kapanen, but he's been around for 10 years.
A while. Yeah.
So can that be a true breakout candidate? I feel like it's got to be Neighbors here.
Yeah. Neighbors again, and the Hofer thing. Like I know you and I are not the biggest Binnington fans, especially with his antics and such. But I feel like Binnington's play, he reestablished himself as like kind of a number one type of goalie. So I don't know if Hofer's going to kind of get, unless Binnington slides back to a slumps again. But I think it's Binnington's net to be honest. So it's Neighbors. One guy to just, maybe he doesn't crack the lineup right away, but Dalibor Dvorsky, their prospect, played with the Sudbury Wolves last year. Great center. He's if he gets a chance, he might be able to establish himself, as the 10th overall pick in the 2023 draft. He's a guy who, again, just if you don't want to pick Neighbors, you want to go off the board, Dvorsky would be my pick. But yeah, Neighbors, I think, though, he could, especially if he's playing with Rob Thomas, or like playing with some of those top guys, he has a chance to maybe work at a 35 type of goal scorer, the way he can shoot the puck. So then you'd be talking about a massive breakout for a guy who put up 27 his first full season. So
on to Utah we go, and the suggested name here is John Marino, who was brought in to help solidify the decor for the Utah Hockey Club. And I mean, that would certainly be of consideration, but a guy who really impressed in his first season, but I think laid a good base for what can be expected of his game. And he has the opportunity to just exceed it in almost every capacity, is Logan Cooley. 20 goals his first year with the formerly Arizona Coyotes. Feels like he's got the opportunity to just exceed all of those numbers and turn himself into a legitimate threat on this team.
Yeah, Utah's got a bunch of guys, because you could have talked about Dylan Guenther, who was the 9th overall pick in the 2021 draft. There's a bunch of guys, of course, Doan, who the narcissist pick, but had a really nice season last year as well too for in Tucson. But yeah, I think Cooley, Utah fans or / Arizona fans waiting for him to come out of college is kind of a bit of a process to get him out, but showed flashes last year, right? We all know that goal he scored down in Australia, the nice backhand spin as he cuts across the ice. But I think Utah, with a reinvigorated defense core, it's going to really make Cooley's life way easier this year. And I think we're going to see Cooley kind of take that big step and establish himself as one of the next NHL superstars.
Let's move to Vancouver. The name listed here is Daniel Sprong, and I get the reasoning why, because he has bounced around to quite a few teams over the course of his career so far. Yeah, he's sprung around, but I'm going to offer up another name because I think he has yet to really solidly establish himself, because his playing time has dropped over the last couple of seasons after 14 goals in his first year with Vancouver. Vasily Podkolzin is my pick for true breakout here, because, this Vancouver team, they got a lot of money allocated to key players. And so they need those younger guys to step in and to be able to assist and produce. And after 2 points in 19 games last year, I think Podkolzin steps into a role and gives Vancouver some elite, cheap production, because he's making $1 million, and Vancouver, it seems like, can really maximize those types of players in this lineup with Pettersson, with JT Miller commanding big bucks. You got to have those bargain guys that can help fill out the lineup.
Yeah, Vancouver is kind of weird because they're kind of, again, one of those teams that's really trying to start to compete now, and you have a lot of players kind of entering their prime right now. Hoglander was another guy I know we talked about. One guy just keep an eye on, who knows if they're going to keep him at Abbotsford all year long, but if he gets a chance to play NHL games, Jonathan Lekiramaki has one of the cleanest shots you will ever see. And you could just see like Elias Pettersson or Miller or one of these guys just setting him up and just being able to kind of tee it off, and maybe has a Jake Neighbors type season where the goal to assist ratio is way off, But like Hiramaki, if he gets a chance, he has a chance to break out. I could also be trying to hype him up a little bit here. He's had another very interesting development process, but has really kind of started to find his game the last year or so. But yeah, it's going to be I guess it's Hoglander or whatever.
2 more to go.
I just want to talk about like Hiramaki. He's fun.
I want to say this last name, which is why I'm bringing him up. Vegas Golden Knights. The listed name is Alexander Holtz, and I get it. He was playing a smaller role with the New Jersey Devils, more of a bottom 6 guy who has the potential to crack the lineup higher for Vegas and improve upon the 16 goals that he had with the Devils in 82 games. But my choice for the Vegas Golden Knights is Pavel Dorofeyev, who had 13 goals in 47 games for the Golden Knights this past season. And I think he builds off of that because the Vegas cap situation is kind of a mess. And they're going to need some guys, especially the likes of Dorofeyev, to step up and to give them consistent production outside of their top-level guys, Eichel, Stone, Hurdle, Carlsson, Barbashev, and Nicholas Waugh. Beyond that, you're going to need some guys to step in. And I feel like Dorofeyev could certainly do that for the Golden Knights.
Yeah, I mean, they need one of these guys, whether it's Dorofeyev, whether it's Brendan Brisson, who was late first, early second round pick, pulling up right now, late first round pick in the 2020 draft, who has not been able to kind of establish himself, also has a really nice shot as well. They need one of these wingers to really kind of take the next step and break out because, like you said, it is after those top guys, it gets really, really fast with this Golden Knights roster. So yeah, just pick your winger du jour there and hope one of them breaks out.
Final team is the Winnipeg Jets. And this one is interesting because Cole Perfetti is the selection from the hockey writers. But he had 19 goals this past season. And so, again, like we have dealt with many of the players on this list, feels like the breakout already happened. And this Winnipeg
Brad Lambert. Big Brad Lambert.
This Winnipeg team's got a bunch of different established names on the roster. And so what I will do is
let me talk about Brad Lambert for 20 minutes.
Yeah, I will let you handle this last one and give us the breakaway candidate for the Jets.
Brad Lambert, who amazing season in the AHL. I wish the Sharks had drafted him. One of my favorite players in that draft. Lambert coming out, there was talk of attitude issues, and I don't care. The dude's good at hockey. That's all I care about. He's very good at hockey. He is going to crack this Jets lineup. I know they have a bajillion old guys, but Brad Lambert's too good, and he's going to break out. And I'm going to say 50-point season for Brad Lambert right off the hop. Let's go, baby.
Wow. You heard it here first, folks. So there you have it, a list of breakout candidates for every single team in the Western Conference, thus concluding today's episode of Locked On NHL. We appreciate you tuning in each and every day of the week and turning Locked On NHL into your first listen each and every day. And in order to continue that, make sure if you haven't already that you hit the subscribe button and follow us on your favorite audio platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Locked On NHL comes your way with a wide array of hosts every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.